Do we have a show today?
I thought we did, and then everyone told me we didn't, but I showed up anyway.
Oh, shit.
Glad you're here, too. I don't think I could have done this alone.
That'd have been a bummer.
Yeah.
I gotta put my earbuds in. Hey, and welcome to Talk Heathen!
Hello.
Today's December 29th, 2019, episode 52 of 52.
Yes.
Is my mic out?
You're up.
I'm good. Okay,
You are
cool.
good.
Whew, the end of season 3, and V, I'm so excited that you made it. I'm glad I made it too. Holy moly. Okay, good. I'm plugged in. I'm ready to rock. I'm Eric Murphy.
I'm Vila Bianca. In case you didn't know that.
Right. Okay, so
If not, welcome.
So before we dive into the show, how was your week?
It was good.
Yeah.
It was good. It went by very slowly. It was a slow week.
Okay.
I think because everybody else was doing Christmas shit,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't doing Christmas shit, so
Okay.
I felt like I was just kind of sitting still and watching everything go by. But that was fine.
All
That
right.
was fine. I watched reviews for Cats.
Oh, how was that?
Oh, it was bad. It was delicious. It was so good.
Rock on. I have Dancing in the Moonlight stuck in my head from my Twitch stream last night.
Yeah?
Yeah, I just cannot. I think I've listened to it like 20 times. But let's see. I did want to say that it was announced that the ACA was going to be closed and we weren't going to be doing shows. Mm-hmm. I didn't understand. And I pulled people together and that just didn't, I don't think it came out well, and I don't like that. So I just wanted to say sorry about that. And I'm glad y'all are here and made it. Because there's not going to be an atheist experience, I'd love to do an extra long Talk Heathen.
That would be amazing.
Yeah?
I'm down. You guys down?
The only thing that we're really going to need is we're going to need callers because we don't have too many today, and the live stream isn't up. Oh my.
Nope.
Okay.
All right. We are still fighting with the
Well,
live stream.
should we just wait and redo the intro?
New link?
Maybe.
All right. Wait, weird hiccup. People in the chat. We good? Okay.
Okey
New
dokey.
link is coming out on Twitter. I'm going to be.
All right. Now we're up.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Talk Heathen. Yay! Well, that was fun.
That was fun.
Today's December 29th, 2019. I'm Eric Murphy.
I'm Vila Bianca.
It is season 3, episode 52 out of 52.
We made it.
Every single week for a year.
I say we. I have been here every single week for a year.
Well, I'm glad you're here now.
Me too.
It has been one hell of a year, and I'm just beside myself with so many feels. It has been excellent, and this last week has been really fun. How about yours?
It's been good. It's been slow.
Yeah?
Yeah. Spent Christmas watching Cats reviews, and they were so bad. Guys, it was delicious.
I can't help but feel like this is going to create the next generation of furries.
You know what? It might, or
Yeah.
it might completely kill the movement. One or the other.
I don't know. They were just highly sexualized animals. I'm not going to...
But it was, okay, so the best description I heard of it was not Uncanny Valley, awkward corner.
Okay. Ooh, that's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's even bad at being bad.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
fair. Yeah, my week was all right. I spent it with family, Christmas with family. Nice. People were nice. Things were good. Had good food. Spent a couple days with just people I dearly care about. And let's see. I have Dancing in the Moonlight stuck in my head.
Yeah.
I cannot get it out of my head. It's from my Twitch stream last night. I was fighting a boss, and I was like, "Fuck!" And now I can't stop. So I'm just going to be like, if you see me bopping along.
Well, I used to swing dance to that, so under the table, my feet are going to be doing rock step, triple. It's going to be...
Oh, gosh. It's going to be one of those episodes. I did want to say that the entire putting together of this episode was something that I kind of threw together, and I didn't really communicate very well with a lot of people, and for those people who I didn't communicate, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to do that. I am happy that we're doing this episode. I need to do better. So Cheers. Love y'all.
But we've got some amazing people here who weren't going to be here today, but then they heard that we were wanting to do Talk Heathen, and they were here anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Let's see. Is there anything else? Yeah, it's the last episode of the year.
Last episode of the year. Next episode 4.1.
Yes.
Is going to be pretty special.
Well, and I'm also going to be looking forward to, I'd like to do a new intro for the show.
Yeah. I'd like to get out of the trunk of that car.
Right? But here's the thing. We could use your help. If you have design ideas, this is for you, the audience.
Yeah.
If you have design ideas or if you have music that you'd love to submit to see, if we could use it, that would be fucking amazing.
Yeah, we're wide open to ideas right now. So if you guys are like, man, this would be really cool, send it along.
Mail at talkheathen.com or go to our Reddit, reddit.com/r/talkheathen, and people can talk about it. We can put up Twitter polls. And I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, get in on this, guys. You're what make this show possible, so you get a say.
And just to kind of add a little more, there's not going to be an atheist experience today.
Right.
I would like to do an extra long Talk Heathen. So we're going to keep going. I want to keep taking callers.
Keep the calls coming, guys.
We have one line left. So keep the calls coming because we're going to keep taking them. And I am so ready. I've got my caffeine. I have a spare caffeine. It's going to be good. Right. Also, the ACA, Talk Heathen is a show that's put on by the Atheist Community of Austin. The ACA is a 501c3 nonprofit. We have this studio, we put on shows, and the goal is to educate. The goal is to give people a voice and to put out this kind of content. It's important. And if you like what we do, if you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/talkheathen to me. That's patreon.com/talkheathen to me. The way it works is you can sign up per episode, and you could say, hey, I'll give $1 an episode, and since we do 4 a month, it'd be $4 for the month.
Yeah.
It really does help. And we thank our top 5 patrons at about 2/3 of the way through the episode every week. So if you'd like to get your name mentioned in today's episode, you can hop on to patreon.com/talkheathen to me, and I will refresh that before I list off some names. Okay, now it's time. You ready to dive into calls?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Connor in Austin, Texas.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, man. Long time no talk.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah.
Doing well.
Yeah.
So
I was wanting to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, what do you want to talk about today?
So I was wanting to bring up a couple of past experiences that still, for me, is a bit of a internal, it's just a lot of questioning. And it would be nice to see what an atheist viewpoint would be on this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now,
that's good.
I want to, before I get into telling about the experiences, I want to say up front that, yes, there are caveats, but then there are also caveats to the caveat. So it's going to be a bit of an in-depth, back and forth in what's going in, the questions going around in my head sometimes.
Okay, well, we're going to do our best to steer through this because this is a call-in show. And so as long as you're comfortable with us jumping in, asking questions, and, kind of keeping things paced.
Yeah, in-depth back and forth is kind of our jam. So let's do it.
Go for it, man.
All right. So there are 2 different experiences back when I was a teenager, one when I was 15, one when I was 19.
Okay.
Where from a personal viewpoint, it could be considered experiences with God.
Okay.
Okay.
How did you determine that?
Well, see, that'll be a part of the caveats later.
Well,
on how there's no. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm. That's just so you know. That's going to be what's stuck in my head the entire time. Is how did you know?
Oh, don't worry. That is part of the caveats to address it. That brings up the questions along with it.
Okay. Well, in a nutshell, what happened?
All right. So I'll start with the one when I was 15, and just a bit of info about me personally is history with, being an autistic individual, we're born with a condition known as emotional dysfunctional disorder. So as much as I can remember, I had always had a severe depression throughout my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's the kind where every waking moment you just don't want to be conscious because it's that bad.
Right.
And so this one evening in particular, it's just, I can definitely say it was bad, but not like to like a certain extreme without going into detail. Like we can, okay.
Yeah.
So basically it was just like really horrendous.
Yeah.
A way of feeling. And to be honest, without any way of being able to explain it, out of nowhere, this massive feeling of love flooded into my brain in such a way that it is something that I had never felt before or since. And it felt like a single drop of an entire ocean of love, because I had the sense that the rest of it was just surrounding me, but only a single drop could get in.
Okay.
And it was like, and I forget the word for this, I forget the term for this, but the way I would describe how strong it felt is that, you know how a lot of believers say that when we get to heaven, we would feel so much love from God that it would be worth worshiping Him for all eternity, and it would be just, that's what it felt like at the time.
Yeah.
So now,
when I was a Christian, we called it agape love. This kind
that's
of
what it was.
Yeah, unconditional love. So here's my question for you. How did you determine that pointed to a God? Like,
well, see, that's going back to the questioning I've had a lot lately. Like, how could I tell that it was? Because, the EDD, let's just say for short, was what I discovered within the last couple of years.
Right.
And yes, there is another aspect to this story, which right before the moment happened, and this was a moment where I completely lost the ability to tell time. It was that powerful. But right before that, I was listening. I'm sorry? I
said I've experienced that kind of depression. I'm sorry to hear that.
It's okay. I'm on medication now.
Same here. Cheers. So question.
So, one last aspect to add to this, to the final detail for this experience was, I was, at the time, I did have a radio playing a Christian music station. Mm-hmm. So that may lend some some credence to that. That may have predetermined because my immediate thought as soon as this experience started was just God. Like, that was just the immediate reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's those are the caveats to that first experience.
Okay. Can I summarize this and try and rephrase it back to you?
Sure.
You had an experience that you can't explain,
right,
and are attributing that unexplainable thing to God. So instead of saying it's not explainable, you're saying it has to be God because it can't be explained, right?
No, what I'm saying is, with all the different caveats, there's no set determination on my part or conclusion as to what happened.
Okay.
But
the right answer would be, I don't know.
Well, yes. It was just more of like a way to share an experience. But then there are also, like I said, caveats to these caveats.
Well, I mean,
so a bit like,
I don't want us to go so far down a rabbit hole that we lose, the thread here.
Right. Are these experiences, have these experiences influenced the way you see the world now, or are they just cool experiences that you're sharing? Because ideally what we're talking about are things that are kind of linchpins for your worldview and your faith, because it says here that you are a theist.
Yes, it did. It has had a profound effect on me as an individual in that the experiences themselves moved me in a way to show loving kindness to others, because it is something so beautiful that it's something that we should strive to show and just to show to each other and treat each other with.
Couldn't that be true regardless of your experience?
I mean, yes, but
Okay.
from personally, it really helps to push it forward.
We've talked to people who personally think that the pyramids are the original site of the Garden of Eden, and who think that the Earth is flat. How do we determine, what is and isn't true? How do we determine, what we should accept as good evidence and what we shouldn't accept as good evidence? Like, Connor, let me ask you a question. Do you think that telling us about your personal experience is convincing for us? And if
it's not to convert you or anything.
No, but so why is it not convincing for us and it is convincing for you? Like, what about this meets your standard of evidence but not ours?
No, I don't think I made it clear enough. It's like these situations, yes, originally they had that effect, but now there's so much questioning in these that it was just to get a atheist perspective on this undetermined conclusion to experiences.
Okay. My perspective on this, because I've had similar experiences myself, not exactly the same, but overwhelming emotion to the point that that came out of nowhere, where I'm not sure where it's from, that affected my ability to cognitively function for periods of time. My go-to is, first off, not sure what, but most likely explanation is I was experiencing some kind of mental thing, whether that was a rush of oxytocin or endorphins, or maybe my serotonin levels were off, especially because I do know that I have certain issues with those kinds of chemical balances, right? So a shot up of endorphins is going to feel amazing, and especially if I'm in a situation where I'm surrounded by media or a perspective, like you said, you were listening to Christian music at the time, especially in cases like that, I'm going to attribute it to something external, because that's what we're taught to do, and that's a survival instinct. Something's wrong, something external might be the reason, go look for it. But for me, it would be a purely internal biological chemical event, until proven otherwise. And there's always that door open, right? There's always maybe it's something else. But the most reasonable explanation that requires the least amount of jumping to extra conclusions would just be that my brain did a weird thing.
And in psychology, it's called priming. And so you are primed to have this kind of experience. And I suggest you look into it. The idea, here's my perspective, man. When you have an unexplained event, you look at what the likely causes of that event were, right? And you do some investigation, and then you determine, what is the most likely cause. And we don't have data on answered prayers working. I mean, there have been studies on intercessory prayer that have come out not good for the people who believe in intercessory prayer. It shows that it either doesn't work or sometimes has a negative effect. So we don't have that. We don't have definitive evidence of a religious God existing. So if we don't even have that, we can't include that as a possible explanation. You can't include, leprechauns or fairies in an explanation for something just because you don't know. What you're limited to are the options of things that do have an effect on the world. Maybe, it's likely something happened in your brain chemistry. It's likely that you were primed. It's likely that, anything from a psychotic break to being drugged is far more likely, because those are things that happen in the world, than a interventionary God coming down to fill your heart with happiness. Because wouldn't that God also have given you this lifetime of crippling depression? And that's kind of cruel. Like, that God would have done both, right? Like, they're responsible for the good and the bad.
Or what if God isn't responsible for either?
Well, then you can define God that way and we can talk about him. But if you're talking about an intercessory God, then that God is, if you're talking about an omnipresent, I don't know if you are, do you think God is everywhere all the time?
I don't even, that's a whole other conversation where I think those words themselves are limited due to the fact they are non-descriptive descriptors.
Okay, so then what is it that caused your experience?
God in the first place.
Okay, then how are you using that as a description or as a possible answer for your experience? It makes no sense.
That's what I'm getting at. Like this was just a conversation on something that is undetermined.
Okay, then it's undetermined. I would say that it would be a bad idea to ascribe the supernatural to something when you haven't given enough evidence to show that the supernatural is even possible. I hope that helps.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, because when I first learned about my condition a couple of years ago from a therapist, it kind of like just I got into a state where I just completely ignored the God aspect. But then I started questioning out of an entire lifetime of every waking moment of my condition just leaving me in a horrible depression. Why did it only throw me into this one, let's say, 5-minute long experience of the extreme polar opposite, which is what the condition does? It just throws you to the extreme of an emotion.
Okay.
So it's more like a probability and a question on the probability or statistic. Like, why was it so uneven in how it would throw me to one extreme, but for an entire lifetime, but only once and was essentially the exact middle of it for right now.
Well, I mean, I'm hesitant to get into the probability thing because the probability of a thing that has already happened is 100% because it happened. But also, my question for you, Connor, is if let's say that this was a feeling of overwhelming love from a third party who wanted to give you that feeling in that moment. Would a being who I'm assuming in this theory is all-powerful only give that to you that one time? Would there be so many caveats to the caveats to the caveats if this thing really did love you and want to be with you and support you and help you in your time of crisis? Because for me, like if I care about someone, I want to be around them. I want to be there, and I'm going to make sure that they know that I'm there for them. And that's just one human to another human. If this thing is all powerful and wants to give you love and they only give it to you for like a couple seconds in the middle of this massive depression, that feels like a contradiction, right?
I honestly don't know, because we're talking about something that, as we've already agreed on, cannot be proven, cannot be properly described through human imagining.
Not true. Just that's true for you. We have people call in with all kinds of different definitions for their gods. We listen to what they have to say and then kind of meet them where they're at. There are some people who could give a definition for a god that is rock solid and something we can investigate. And then it's kind of then the job to investigate it. But yeah.
I mean, you're closer than a lot of people by saying, yeah, I'm aware that this is an unexplained event and I don't have the answer, so that's good.
Intellectually honest,
yeah,
for sure.
Awesome. I would just take that intellectual honesty into the rest of your worldview and make sure that you're not building a worldview on something that's unexplained, because that's dangerous.
Okay.
Yeah. But
all right, I think we've covered the first experience. Would you like to go on to the second one? Because it is different.
Let's do the next experience next week. That way we can have time for other callers.
Okay, so then a bit of a teaser for it. It would be considered an answered prayer.
Okay, and what I'm going to ask you is, how do you know that it was an answer? How do you know it was answered? And how did you come to that determination? And if the answer is I don't know, then we're just calling in to assert random things that are unexplained, and I don't know how useful it is. So just kind of putting that out there, man.
I was just giving it as a teaser for calling in next week.
For sure.
Yeah, we'll get into it more next time.
All right.
Okay.
Have a happy New Year.
You too.
Bye. My thinking is, well, I'm always so curious about people who say they have objective experiences while doing something like being inside of a church or praying or listening to Christian music. Because to me, that suggests that maybe it's not a completely unbiased experience out of nowhere. Like, if that's even if you're not like 100% believing this thing, it's your cultural experience. It is what you're surrounding yourself with.
Absolutely. And if it points to the Christian God, it points equally as much toward every other God that, you can look at other organized religions that have similar things and people report the same kinds of feelings. And so it's also the exact same amount of evidence for those.
Yeah.
And what about people who can get that through meditation or going to a concert or experiencing art or things like that, experiencing a beautiful landscape or something like that? You get that same feeling as well. And so all of a sudden you have non-supernatural explanations for supernatural, claims. And
yeah. Plus, I mean, people are like, well, I had this massive experience that I can't explain, and emotionally it was very profound, and it taught me that God was with me. And my counter to that is, okay, if that's what we're going with. When I was deconverting, before I even thought about being an atheist, I had a massively profound and unexplained emotional experience that told me that God left. So if we're going with that as okay, so
which one?
So which one? What there then?
Absolutely, because that would be the exact same evidence pointing towards opposite conclusions. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. All right, let's go to Josh in Port Neches, Texas. Josh, you're live with Eric and V. How are you doing?
Hello.
Hello.
Doing all right. How about y'all?
Doing good.
Really well, man. It's the last episode of the year. I'm excited. What did you want to talk about today?
Okay, I had a couple questions.
Sure.
One was relatively short, and just wanted to get y'all's, well, I guess for lack of a better word, story on where y'all came to where y'all are now. And then the other one's a little more, I suppose, metaphysical.
Okay.
We'll get into that later.
Well,
So
just so that we can establish a baseline, it says that you are a religious person.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you identify under any specific religions?
Yeah, I've been a Christian since I was 6.
Okay.
Yeah, they got me young.
Okay.
But to give you a little more ground on where I am now, like I'm not exactly like good at it right now. I've just got a lot of personal questions and just shit that I'm trying to work out, and really I came to a point of just total exhaustion in a prayer life and in a church life.
Yep.
Yeah. Does that resonate?
Oh
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
You're among friends here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Well, that translates perfectly into the first question I had for y'all. I just wanted to trade notes. So I wanted to hear, because I'm of the understanding that y'all were both Christians at one point and are now not.
Yep.
Is that correct? Okay.
That is right.
Then my question was, what was the journey that led you into Christianity, and what was the journey that brought you out? What was the line of thinking that brought you in and out?
Yeah.
If I may ask.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So this is going to be an extra long episode of talking. Josh, I'm gonna do my best to summarize and try and hit some high points.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Otherwise, we're going to be here all day. In a nutshell, it was a death by 1,000 cuts. How I got into it is I was raised in it. I was as a kid. You ask about the world and you say, "Hey, what is this?" Oh, well, that's evidence of God. That's God. You're raised up, singing the songs, and eventually, over time, I kind of went, okay. I understand that this is evidence of God. Look at the trees, right? That's evidence of God. Look at the beauty of this world. That's evidence of God. And so I went, okay, no, that's evidence. So obviously it's true. I believe. I was baptized as a baby, Catholic, and then my family became born-again Christians, and I was baptized twice as a Christian. Did all the regular stuff, went to, Bible camp and all of that. I volunteered at the church and did the, oh my gosh, it's escaping me. the summer program. What was it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm losing it. Anyway. Vacation Bible School, VBS.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
And then over time, I had questions. And the answers that I got were different from different people. Mm-hmm. And eventually I started to kind of get pushed out. The funny thing is long after the people in my life had already expected me and thought that I was no longer a Christian, I still considered myself a Christian. I was just like, no, I believe. I'm just trying to make it fit in this world. I'm trying to understand it and make it make sense. And so I started changing the definitions of God. And I well, what if this works? And what if that works? And then eventually I went, okay, I can't be a Christian because this doesn't make sense, and all the answers that I'm getting are angry or, well, because I said so, or you just have to have faith. Okay, why though? Can you just please give me that one piece, please? And they didn't. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to be super, edgy, and I'm going to go straight to Eastern religions because they're mystical. And so I went to Eastern religions, and I couldn't get the answers. And so then I went to, Native American kind of spiritualism, and I thought, well, what about physical stuff? And so, what about like drugs? There are all these shamanistic drugs that you could take that help you experience, this kind of collective unconscious and yada, yada, yada. And so I fucked with my brain chemistry by doing these drugs. And I did it, in a safe way, right? I had a sitter. I meditated and all of that stuff. I wasn't anyway, I wound up realizing I'm just messing with my brain chemistry. And I wound up kind of going full circle. I actually, wanted to become Jewish for a little while. And it was in an argument with a rabbi that I was like, that's not enough. And he goes, then just don't believe. Mm-hmm. I was like, wait, what?
That's an option?
Yeah. And after that, I walked away from religion entirely for a while, became super smug about myself. Okay. And then found the atheist movement and went, this is somewhere where I want to belong. I got into philosophy, theology, read the Bible again and again and again as an atheist. Josh, you're sitting on the other side. So I hope that you understand when I tell you. I've been told, Eric, you're not a Christian because you haven't read the Bible. And I was like, but I did. And they said, well, you need to read it again. Okay. And I read it. And they said, but what Bible did you read? And I said, I read the King James Version. They said, you can't read the King James Version, Eric. That is not, you need to read NIV. And so I went and I got the NIV and I read the NIV and I said, that was not very different. It's easier because, there's not like the these and thys and thous and stuff, but like the story is the same. But okay, I read NIV and they seemed, perplexed. And then somebody said, but you didn't read ESV.
Yeah.
Josh, I read ESV. I did. And at that point, I realized what people were doing is they weren't actually talking to me. They were talking at me. And what they were doing is they were finding excuses to write me off.
Yeah.
And at that point, I actually grew a little bit of confidence and started to work on my epistemology and what makes sense and how you can understand the world, and not just in religion, but in everything. And here we are.
Yeah.
How about you, V?
Wow.
That was very theatrical. I don't think I'm going to be able to follow that up with any amount of aplomb, but it's a similar story for the most part. I was also raised in it. I grew up very hyper conservative, fundamentalist, non-denominational Christian. My dad started a home church, and I was also homeschooled. So my world was basically my house until I went to college. And then I went to college at a Christian university. And that was kind of when it started going downhill, as all of my fundamentalist friends and relatives told me it would. I didn't believe them, but that's how it works. Because I was taking theology classes, right? I was going to, they required chapel twice a week. and they would have guest speakers to come in and talk about different aspects of the Bible. And I was getting introduced to all of these amazing, beautiful Christian people who had completely different views than I did and were Christian in a different way. And that began to kind of open up my idea of, wait, there's more than one way to be a Christian. Is there a right way? Is there a wrong way? I need to investigate this. So I started asking questions, and I had a lot of really smart theological professors there, and I would ask them these questions, and it would either be super fluffy, like, oh, God works in mysterious ways, and like all of these kind of, right, yep, that, I feel that deeply within my non-existent soul. Yep. So it was either that, or it was, okay, let me get this chalkboard and draw this ridiculously long, complex diagram to explain this theological concept. So it was one or the other. There was no common sense. Well, clearly this is the reason, because it's real and it's reality. So I started doing my own research, and I was coming up with just all kinds of different things that kind of I wanted to fit into my moral code, which was rapidly changing. And when I looked up a couple of years later, I realized that my version of Christianity was completely different from everyone else's. And I had made all of these tweaks and changes so that 90% of the people I would talk to would tell me I wasn't a Christian anymore. So at that point, I was like, okay, is this just what everyone's doing? Everyone's just making up their version of God to fit their own moral compass? Because this seemed like I was on the right track, but clearly I'm off in this little corner over here where nobody else is. So yeah, I started looking into Buddhism for a while. I went to Wicca, and then I was like, pantheism is a thing, and then I just went down this rabbit hole of maybe this, maybe that, because the concept of maybe nothing and that's okay didn't occur to me. So it was a long process, and I only started calling myself an atheist maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But yeah, for the most part, the reason was honesty. I needed to know that I was honestly looking at the world and not trying to fool other people or myself. I knew that if there was a good God out there, that God would appreciate that honesty and that honest search for truth more than that God would appreciate me going to church on Sunday and singing songs I didn't believe in. And it ended up leading me straight out.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Okay. Well, no, the reason I say that is because a lot of what you have described resonates with me a lot more than I expected to. I wasn't really sure what to expect, honestly. But both of your personal paths in and out, like, I can find myself very easily on the map that you drew out for me. Yeah. Right now, I'm probably on the drugs phase. But
be responsible and be safe. You could fry your brain, man.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good. Get a setter.
Keep my brain together.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yep.
The reason I say that is because that piles into the idea of collective unconscious and all this business. And it gets you curious about the Eastern religions and all that kind of shit. And like, I mean, if I'm honest with y'all, if I'm honest with myself, then I'm still at a place where I believe that Jesus is who he says he is, did what he said he did, all that good stuff. But obviously, I have poked my own holes in my own belief, and now I just haven't filled them in with the honest ideas of what I believe, I suppose, is the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
So I'm still left with a lot of questions.
And yeah, that's not a bad thing. Having questions and having those gaps where, I had an answer and it didn't fit anymore, so now I need a new one. That's exactly where you're supposed to be right now. Like that feels very familiar to me. Just
the things that kept me kind of at that point. And I don't know if this will resonate with you, but because it's happened to me, hopefully sharing it will help. The things that really took me off of wanting to ask questions were when people around me started weaponizing shame.
Oh, shit. Fuck that.
You know what I'm talking about then.
Yeah.
Or there were these different manipulations, how dare you, or how do you have the right, or you don't have the brain that can understand it, so of course you're not going to get it. There were a lot of really manipulative tactics. And, what was interesting is what helped me out finally was when I started getting a different tactic used on me, which was you were never a Christian in the first place. Because then it was like, oh, I'm not even in the tribe anymore.
Yeah.
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 So when it comes to that kind of stuff, dude, you are absolutely okay. And nobody's sitting here with a knife. We're not going to punish you if you come to a different conclusion. We just want you to have the best tools possible to kind of live in this world that you're in, and let you know you're not alone.
Yeah.
I appreciate and I respect that greatly. Yeah. The way that you'll handle people with opposing viewpoints, with the kindness that you'll handle them with, and the tact that you'll handle them with is very respectable. And
you.
And
cheers.
So, yeah, absolutely. What you mentioned about weaponizing shame, it's like within the church, I find if you ask the wrong questions, you're out.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
There's where's the honesty in that,
Yeah. And it got hard to kind of justify things that I saw that were not good. And I know it changes from church to church, but there were people that we shunned. And I was a part of it. And I look back at it and I feel terrible, and there are people who've called in who said, that they've hurt people because of they were so convinced when they were Christians that they felt justified in being hurtful, and their process is that but their process is that they're letting it go because it happens and it's okay. And you would forgive another person. My go-to example are the children of of Fred Phelps. You have a son and a daughter, and I'm sure the names are going to come up in the live chat, who both left, and yet there's video footage of them holding the most horrendous signs and saying some of the most heinous things possible, and yet they're both out and they're speaking, and people are going to their talks, and they're not canceled. It's not, oh my gosh, you did this thing and you're never allowed to be a part of society. We said, hey, you know what? You got here. You actually looked, and it's okay. You have a place here, and we're glad that they're here.
Yeah, you were given bad information. You were raised to look at the world in a way that was wrong, and it's not your fault. And the fact that you are getting out or asking these questions or whatever conclusion you come to is putting you miles ahead of people who haven't given it a second thought since childhood. So you're already doing a lot of really hard work, and it's difficult to do. So I just want to acknowledge that too. Like the exhaustion you mentioned, it's completely understandable. And I've been there.
Yep. So
that's very comforting to hear. Glad to know I'm not alone. Glad to know I'm not the first to ask these questions. It's very refreshing.
And also know you find you're in Texas. I know it's a big state, but if you ever find yourself through Austin, you don't need to identify as an atheist to have a place to belong here. You're always welcome.
Cool. Well, I appreciate that. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's more welcoming than many churches or any church.
Well, cheers.
Mind the irony. Yeah.
All right, brother. It was good talking to you, man.
Yeah, great talking to you all too. Thank you so much. I had another question, but I think this really did it. This really covered it.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, call back. Yeah.
Definitely.
Let us know how you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I'll keep y'all posted.
And if you do come across something really convincing and you're like, oh my gosh, no, I'm let us know. We want to know too. Don't.
Yeah, you'll be the first to know, my friend.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Take care, man.
Cool. Take care.
That made my day.
Yeah, that was really nice. I was reminded in the chat it was Nate Phelps and Megan Phelps Roper, who we need on this show.
Yes.
Nate Phelps and Megan Phelps Roper.
Megan Phelps Roper was actually just on a YouTube show that I watch frequently where she was just interacting with children. And it was children meet a religious fundamentalist. And it was very powerful and moving. I was like kind of just tearing up a little bit. So she is doing the YouTube circuit. So
clip this if you know them and send this to them, please. You have an open invite to talk Heathen. Okay. Let's move on to Antonio in Panama. Antonio.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Hey.
good.
Doing all right. What do you want to talk about today?
Well, I took the advice of you guys and I wrote down all the main points so it could be a little bit easier to express myself.
Awesome.
And sorry for the noise. Also, just to clarify before I start, the last time I called, I wanted to break the ice with a joke, and it didn't go well. So I apologize.
I'm sure it's okay. I'm sorry, Antonio. I don't remember, but I'm not going to force you to tell a bad joke again.
No. It's just the reason I was mentioning that because I felt that after that the conversation was I think you guys didn't take me as seriously because it seemed like I was just like messing around and
got it
to do that.
Okay. Yeah. So what's up? What do you want to talk about?
All right. So, well, just to remind you guys a bit then, I guess I'm Antonio, the pantheist,
Okay.
the guy that was talking about spirituality and psychedelics.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I guess I'll start with a few. Yeah.
Do you still think that psychedelics give you evidence of like God or gods, religious do you still think that?
Well, I never thought that.
Okay.
We need to be careful with absolutes because like I don't believe that there's a God like the big man in the sky.
Okay.
But I do believe that there is spirituality. So
what is spirituality?
I'll start with the question.
Sorry, I'm just following along because now I'm curious. What is spirituality to you? Maybe I agree.
Okay. Well, spirituality to me is a very personal thing, and we tend to assume that religion and spirituality are like synonyms. They're the same thing when in reality it's more to, let's say, math and science, that they're necessarily linked, but saying that math is science is very very simplistic way to perceive math, because math in itself is, you could say, is the language of the universe or the way we perceive the universe in a logical way. And science is basically the whole thing regarding logical ideas, physics, biology, and all these stuffs.
So I agree that they're not synonyms. I agree that they're not the same thing. I think that people tend to think they are, and that's wrong. I don't think that one necessarily needs the other. I think that spirituality could exist healthily in a society that has no form of religion at all.
I totally agree.
Okay. So what is it then? So it's not religion. That's good. So what is it?
Okay. It's, well, sorry, because now we start talking about this and I had all my questions and everything written down. So
well, actually, you know what? If the point of the conversation has nothing to do with spirituality, then we don't need to know the definition. But
right.
If it does have to do with spirituality, then we got to get over this hump before we can get into it.
Yeah.
Just otherwise, we're talking past.
It does. Okay.
It does. Okay.
So using a definition that we can agree on is going to massively help us reach a conclusion.
Okay. So I guess my definition of spirituality would be the awareness and connection to everything. The idea that we are actually one, the whole universe and everything. Just having that awareness that it's easily forgotten that that concept or that idea, because you wake up and you see the separation from your skin and the air and everything. So you're like, yeah, I'm separate from the universe, when in reality we're inside the universe.
So
we are the universe at the same time.
That
would be my definition of spirituality.
Question.
Yeah.
Is this purely physical? Because, like, if we're just talking about set theory, we agree. The Sagan quote, "We are star stuff." It's beautiful, it's poetic, but it can also be a entry point for a lot of bullshit. Because it's so well, you know what I'm talking about then. People can use that to try and shoehorn in weird ideas. That's where things like crystal healing and chakras and all that kind of crap kind of funnels in. Well,
that's interesting, because
do you believe in crystal healing?
Well, I used to, but now I see it in a different way. Not the way like people. The thing is that what I see happening always with spiritualities or exploring ideas, that people tend to end up in absolutes. Religion is a prime example, that basically you believe this and this is a way to believe it and this is the way spirituality works. When in reality, it's like spirituality is a very, very personal thing that every human being has the potential of exploring by themselves. And
that sounds unreliable.
Yeah. Well, it depends, because
and that's understandable. Like, we have different tastes. Like, I could like, grapes and you don't like grapes. That's fine. But that doesn't mean that you can make an objective assertion about whether or not grapes are good or bad. We just have different preferences. So your definition of spirituality sounds like it's not really viable when it comes to how you understand the world. It's just like a preference thing.
Well, I think that's the problem when it comes to talking about spirituality nowadays, because usually when we talk about spirituality, trying to give it value, we try to look at it in the most logical way. But honestly, that's not really the best way to. Sorry if there's an echo.
You're good.
Then that's not the best way of exploring spirituality. It's kind of like it's a way, but it's not the best way. Like, for example, me as an artist, the first thing I did wasn't, oh, you know what? I'm going to see the math in art and stuff. However, there is a lot of beautiful math in art, like the Fibonacci, the color theory and everything that science can appreciate. But I'm pretty sure that the first human being that started to express themselves wasn't thinking, what does this have to do with, I don't know, the position of the sun and calculus or whatever. They were just expressing themselves. That's the essence of art. Like science is the... Sorry?
So I kind of want to tie this back here, because I don't want to go completely off the rails.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is subjective. You said you're a pantheist, correct?
Well, I said that to better simplify everything I personally perceive.
Okay.
But
what I'm asking is, are you using subjective experiences to claim that you know something true about the world? Or are you just saying it's better to be creative however you're creative? Like, we're not going to argue with you on that. What we're going to argue with is that, if somebody says, hey, I saw a message in my alphabet soup, I'm going to quit my job. Like, that's not a good reason. You got to have good reasons for the decisions you're making. Especially you have to have good reasons for the way you understand the world, because if you don't, you can get taken advantage of. So right now, the reasoning you gave shouldn't be the basis for the way you understand the world, and it definitely shouldn't inform your views on whether or not spiritual beings, or gods or whatever exist.
Well, I think we're running into a problem of talking in absolutes, because I would say that I use subjective and objective ideas.
Okay,
Because
what are
going
the
back to
objective
example
ones?
with
Let's talk about the objective ones, because we can agree to disagree on subjective
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
observations. So, what are the objective ones? That's what's going to convince us.
Well, I'm not here to convince anybody. I'm here to, share my ideas and have a conversation and maybe evolve each other's ideas, or maybe, just enjoy that everybody has a different perception of life.
Okay, well, I agree that we all have different perceptions of life.
Cheers.
But if you want to evolve our way of thinking at all, objective reasons for your beliefs are the way to do that. So,
can we use
All right.
a different word other than evolve? It's making me cringe.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Well, I guess
just
improve.
There we go. Okay.
Or develop.
Thank you. Those are good synonyms. Okay. I mean, yeah.
Well, just to say, I'm not really a scientist. I'm more of an artist. So you're gonna hear me with these types of words, and sometimes they're not gonna really fit in. So I'm sorry about that.
All good.
So yeah, basically, my personal perception of reality can be divided in 4 aspects.
okay.
And 2 can be described rather abstract, and 2 are more concrete.
Okay, so you've got 2 abstract ones and 2 concrete ones. I'm drawing a diagram here.
Yeah.
To follow you. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I have a diagram as well.
All right. Let's list those 4.
So, yeah. The 4 would be art, science, spirituality, and politics. And talking in a let's talk about humans for now. You could see.
Actually, I think we could strike a couple of these out.
Yeah, I think art and politics both are things we are going to have different ideas about, and that's fine, and it's not going to influence.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so
we're sticking with spirituality
I'm just
and
stating
science.
Okay. And so
I was stating my personal perception about.
Okay. So
Okay.
we've got the big picture. We're honing in now
Yep.
on.
So yeah, science and why should we care about spirituality? Does it get us to truth? Can we use spirituality the way you described it to understand things about the world that we didn't before? Like, is there an exam that I can take where I can walk in and say, I'm going to use my spirituality to answer these questions and get them correct reliably? Like, what good is it?
Well, no, because that's not what spirituality is about.
Okay.
It's
Is it
basically
only about
the
subjective
opposite of-
experience?
Well, the essence of spirituality, I would say yes.
Okay, so then let's
Just
strike it. You could like a whole bunch of things I don't like, and I'm not going to sit here and argue with you about them, because that's just like your opinion, man. And you can have your opinion, and that's fine. Totally, you do you. You do you. I care about whether or not you think true things about the world are true and why you think them. So if you don't think that spirituality is going to get you to understand true things about the world, then we don't need to waste time on it. So all we're left with is science. Cool. I agree. You agree? We agree. We're good?
Well, I don't really agree. I think.
Oh.
Sorry, but I think. Well, the place where we disagree, I would say, is that the undervalue of subjectivity.
What?
You think that we are undervaluing subjectivity in our decisions and how to determine truth?
Yeah. Just to give an example, like the idea you gave before, like you see a bowl of soup and it says quit your job. So, I guess I'm going to quit my job. The soup told me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a very simplistic way of seeing patterns. For example, let's take the same idea but let's develop it a bit more.
Okay, is this going to get us to understanding, just before we, go down a rabbit hole that might not bear any fruit here, is your example going to show us how subjectivity can get you to understanding true things about the world?
It's just, that's the thing.
Do you not think that we need to understand true things about the world?
No, on the contrary.
Okay.
But I think that it's not fair to put science and spirituality in the same place when in reality their job or what they're doing is completely different.
I don't think anybody's doing that.
No.
In fact, we are very fiercely saying you cannot interchange them. They are not the same thing and can't do the same thing.
It's actually, there's a whole, you just Google what is it? Non-overlapping magisteria, right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
No, because I'm confused now because it seems like we are saying the same thing but for different reasons. So you're saying we can't. Our goal is to make sure that we are not overlapping science and spirituality, right? We are saying spirituality, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not speaking for Eric, spirituality can do a thing that can sometimes be useful if practiced in a way that is responsible and led by reason and logic. But you can't use it to get reason and logic. Science is over here, right? It's a completely different thing. I am on the same page with that. We're just saying when it comes to the function of determining truth, this is the one you use. You use the science. You don't use the spirituality. And if we agree on that, then that's awesome. Do we agree on that?
Hello?
Antonio?
I think we may... Antonio? All right, I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
I guess we're...
I mean...
The audience wants us to be done with that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we tried, and you could tell that he sat and wrote it down.
Yeah, which is good. Like, if you're going to come with talking points, then have the talking points written down. I like writing things down. But we're going to go off that tangent every time. Like, we don't know what your talking points are, so we're going to be over here. And you have to meet us where we're at if we're going to have a conversation.
It definitely makes me think of conversations where people are so focused on one minute piece that they're unwilling to consider the rest of the argument.
Right. And I think we have a lot, like, we are coming at it from different ways, but I think he wasn't expecting us to agree with as much as we did, and so... Yeah,
and I mean, if the point is you should appreciate subjectivity more, we weren't... That's not...
We do. I appreciate a piano because it makes gorgeous music, but I'm not going to use it to cook my food because pianos don't do that.
Yeah.
We love subjectivity. Subjectivity, art, politics, spirituality, it's all great, but we're not going to use it to do a job that it's not fit for because that's when you get into trouble.
Absolutely. And we're definitely not going to let it be the deciding factor in things that we should have better reasons for.
Right, exactly.
Alrighty. Who do you want to talk to next?
Ooh, Brandon's back. Let's talk about Bible codes.
Ooh, okay. Brandon in Arizona.
Hey, Brandon.
Hello.
Yeah, hey, Eric and V, how are you?
Hey.
Good.
Doing good. So, did you listen back to the last episode? What did you think? What are our thoughts over the last time you called in?
Well, I think, you and I were comparing apples and oranges because, I looked up that Michael Drosnin's Bible Code book, and it's a total scam. It's, it basically promotes divination inside the Bible when divination is an abomination to God. So why would he put that in his word?
I definitely think that the Bible Code is divination, using weird numerical sequences so that you can get results that you're looking for. Have you changed your viewpoint on the Bible Code?
Well, as far as the one done by the Royal Statistical Society that I brought up is a completely different animal. It's, when you examine their whole method or parameters that they set in order to find these names written in these mathematical codes inside the Bible. And if you keep in mind in Revelation, when God says, anybody that adds one word or takes one word away from this book, their name will be stricken out of the book of life.
So let's start here by saying the Royal Statistical Society never said that. That is a fact. You are factually saying an untrue thing.
Published, the article published. It was a bunch of Israeli scholars and whatnot, these statisticians, that they did the article. The Royal Statistical Society just published the article.
Okay, so let's talk about the article, because what you're doing is you're making an argument from authority. And basically, this person is really smart, therefore that must be true. Investigation is still called for, right?
Sure, but keep in mind it is a jury reviewed article, and the guys that reviewed the article, these were Princeton and Harvard mathematicians. Right. That
Brandon, Brandon, can I
quickly finish?
I want to share something with you, and I'm hoping this might help. Right, when I left my religion, I was first very kind of off on my own and very quiet and not wanting to talk about it. But in time, eventually I wanted to share things and I wanted to talk about it. And so I'd seen that there was an International Ask an Atheist Day that the Secular Student Alliance was doing. And I thought, you know what? Maybe I can be a resource. And so I reached out to my pastor and I said, hey, Pastor Lance, Ask an Atheist Day is coming up. And I know that atheists are talked about a lot. I'd like to be available as a resource if anybody had any questions, because I want people to be able to have, an actual person to talk to. And I meant it in the best possible sense. I was really trying to help, right? And so his response to me was, well, that Stephen Hawking recently said something that was proven to be false. And he believes in atheism, and everybody laughed at him. And because everybody laughed at him, it definitely shows that science can't get us there. And do you understand how confusing that was for me? Because what he was saying was something that I didn't give half a shit about. Whether or not somebody got laughed at because of their specific field of science has nothing to do with whether or not a God exists. All it was anti-intellectualism, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to point out that this article that you're referencing was published in Statistical Science. And Statistical Science, that journal, is not published by the Royal Statistical Society. It's published by the Institute of Mathematical Sciences, which is a different organization.
Sure. I know that there was another. They basically regurgitated the same study and published it in a different article, but it was originally posted by the Royal Statistical Society. And anyhow, that's where, I just encourage you guys to investigate that a little further, because it was a very complex method and parameters that they set in this computer program.
Brandon.
And as I was saying before, sure.
The reason I brought this story up isn't to get us off topic. It was to say, because a smart person said it is not enough. So let's grant you, just for the sake of argument, that it had been peer reviewed by a very reputable magazine or whatever, right? Let's just grant that.
Sure.
So does that make it true?
No, but
Okay, perfect.
and last time we talked, you guys said, how do you know that the guys that the jury reviewed it were a bunch of atheists? Because even though they said directly that the mathematical odds of this happening by coincidence is 1 in 50 quadrillion, but we still refuse to believe that God did it. They hate that whole idea.
Yeah, okay, hold on, stop. Do you know how many people have gone off on fuck, dude. Here in Austin, Texas, I actually sat at a state, the Texas school board when they were voting to change language to include religion and take science and history. It was fucking weird. But this guy walks up and he says, I know you hate the word Jesus. I know you hate it and it makes you feel, and it was just like, what the fuck? It hadn't, this is like a children's game. If you want to talk to people who are obviously cartoon villains, please find them and talk to them and go onto their show. We're not like that. And for fuck's sake, they hate that. I want to know what's true, Brandon. I want to know what's real about the world that we're in. And if you're going to say, oh, well, they hate that because they can't stand X, all you're doing is writing off people because you don't want to fucking listen to them or you think they have bad reasoning. And if you think they have bad reasoning, show it. But if you're going to write them off because you think that they don't like what you have to say because you're so true, what does that have to do with anything?
It concerns me for people's souls because, they want to claim God doesn't exist. But
Who does? Who is they?
As a man.
Who is they, Brandon?
It's not us. You're talking to us. We're not claiming that.
Is it the grand conspiracy?
Well, I would say, most of the scientific community.
Cool. Call the scientific community. Take it up with them. Goodbye. No. If you're just going to sit and name call faceless people because you don't want to have any actual justification for the bullshit that you're spewing, you don't get room on this show.
Yeah. Nope.
Jimmy in Texas.
Hey, how's it going, Eric?
Not great, man. Not great.
Bring us back,
I heard
Jimmy.
that last call. All right, I'll try to. Well, I wanted to defend Antonio's dropped call. You guys asked him to define spirituality, and you wanted to try to find common ground. And you brought up how you felt that science and spirituality were separate enterprises. So I was going to speak to you. Maybe you're familiar with that, Eric, because I know I've called him before and I've spoken about it to you before. The neuroscience of religion, where, they're neuroscientifically trying to investigate what, neuroscientists today are calling mystical experience. I believe that's the best context in which you can define these spiritual experiences. And okay. I'm not too sure how far you looked into that research.
So I can tell you that since we've talked, I have not looked into it more. And I can also tell you that before we talked, I looked into it a lot.
Okay, well...
And so if we're saying that somebody identified something as a mystical experience, fantastic. The parts that we care about are where people are saying, there's otherworldly, supernatural, magical kind of stuff. You can fall in love and say that's a mystical experience. Cool.
Well, that Matt Dillahunty had that same misconception when I called in back. I was the first caller for the first episode of 2019. I'm the first guy to get hung up on by Matt Dillahunty too, but that's beside the point. But he had that same misconception that these volunteers are calling this, they're calling it themselves a mystical experience, when in fact none of the volunteers even use the word mystical or experience to describe what they're having in these type of states of consciousness.
Okay, so if that's the case, then either you have bad methodology or you have scientists who have said, here is the definition that we're functionally going to use for mystical experience. And fitting the definition that they created, they now were putting things into the bin that fit that definition. Do you have that definition available?
Yes, I do. The original definition in the context of this research, which has been going on for decades, and this research has been going on for decades, and it initiated with the work of William James in the early 1900s. He laid out the original definition for mystical experience. And it's been refined since then. As these studies have continued, it's been refined over decades of research. It's very concretely defined in this research.
Okay, so what's the most recent version of this definition? The most refined version after these decades?
It's pretty elaborate. I mean, I can try to quickly go through it, but they go by 6 characteristics that are definitive for what they call a complete mystical experience.
Okay, what are the 6?
The 6 criteria, the one is unity. In Eastern philosophy, this is known as non-duality. It's the interconnectedness of all people and things, all is one, or pure consciousness.
Wait, sorry, go on.
People.
No, not go on. No, what? Wait, what?
Okay. This is a scientific community saying that they're controlling for oneness with the universe?
Yes.
And that's just one of 6?
Wait.
Yeah, that's just one of 6. It's a profound experience. And I mean, yes, they have to find some way to contextualize.
So wait. They're saying that the person who experienced this thing describes it in this way.
Yes, all volunteers who meet criteria for the complete.
Okay, so these are criteria for the description of a third person's personal experience.
These are criteria that are in a way universally described. In other words, what these people are describing has nothing to do with their personal history. They're outside the context of culture. They're outside the context of space and time.
Stop. Time out. What is outside of space and time, Jimmy?
And how do you measure it, much less put it into 6 categories?
Well,
is there anything out? Can there be outside of space and time? Is that even
It's one of the features. It's one of the definitive features of the complete mystical experience. It's invariably described by all the volunteers who meet the criteria. So they'll describe a timelessness, or they'll say it's beyond dimensionality.
Okay.
Or all time is frozen.
So I remember one night I'd meditated and I was feeling really good. And so I sat back and I did a psychedelic. And I laid back on the carpet and I looked up and I communed with my ceiling fan. This is a true story. My ceiling fan let me know they were happy to exist.
I would argue that that's not a complete mystical experience.
How dare you invalidate my experience, sir?
Well, no, because in your description, you necessarily have this subject-object dichotomy that you're someone.
He wasn't the ceiling fan.
No, I was part of this entire subset of existence where all things were happy to be there. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to account for my absolutely bullshit experience and yours to be able to tell which one you're going to take into account, unless they're both equally true. And if that's the case, then you're not doing science, bro.
The researchers described this in the context of the research is, I've mentioned it to you before, I don't know if you recall, but they related to what's known as the perennial philosophy. It's a perspective on the major religions, where they see these mystical states of consciousness at the very core foundation of the major religions, so that, the Christian mystic and early Christian mysticism, you would say the Holy Spirit or beatific vision or theoria to refer to it. Likewise, Sekhel Musla in Judaism, or Nirvana in Buddhism. Or
so
Samadhi.
People have similar experiences that are unexplained, and some of them turn into religions because they're trying to explain them.
I wouldn't, phrase it that way. I think science has been trying to explain them. We do understand them to a certain degree.
We're calling them mystical experiences because we can't explain them. If we could explain them, they wouldn't be called mystical experiences.
I think they're calling them mystical experiences because they're recognizing them as a universal phenomenon in consciousness, which has been happening for millennia. in this fashion, within this view of the perennial philosophy, that's how it's perceived.
Okay. Give me the name of the scientific organization. I'm going to Google it while you talk to me.
It's Johns Hopkins is the university where this research is taking place, and I mean, they'll have the ongoing studies there.
What's the name of the group? Help me here. What am I typing into Google?
Spiritual practices, the CST.
TST?
Yeah. It's a team of researchers that was put together by, I believe, Robert Jesse, and Dr. Roland Griffiths is one of the leading neuroscientists there.
Okay, Johns Hopkins University has the talent search testing. That's TST.
Okay, I said CSP.
CSP?
Yes, Council on Spiritual Practices.
Okay.
Is the name of the team of researchers.
Council on Social...
So this is psilocybin research.
Yes, psilocybin research. That's occurring there, but it's
okay.
It's based on earlier research.
Is this entirely limited to giving people drugs and having them talk about their experiences?
Not necessarily, because it's been related to other research throughout the decades where they investigated.
Lots of things can be related to other things, and we can investigate those individually. You're using this as an authority that we're looking at. So I'm looking at it.
No, what I'm saying, it's all interrelated research that's building on each other. The only reason why psychedelics have become a focus is because they realized that they can induce the same experiences that they were studying with the contemplative states, like the Tibetan monks entering meditation or the Carmelite nuns entering the contemplative state.
So you're saying that you can induce a brain state. Cool.
Yep, we know this.
What happens with meditation, with psychedelics, and it's a lot more facile to do it that way. That's why psychedelics it's prompted research all around the world.
Well, why? I mean, who cares? If you say I give people drugs and they trip out the same way other people trip out, if they really focus on it, cool.
Well,
who cares?
I think,
why should I care, Jimmy?
It's kind of wrong to focus on the psychedelics themselves. It's even Roland Griffiths will say it's clear that this research isn't about psychedelics.
Jimmy, that's like saying, wow, I had 5 different people come in with the same kind of stomach pain because they were all kicked in the stomach by one person. And then you're saying ignore the person who kicked them in the stomach and try and explain the stomach pain in some other way?
No, I disagree. That's why I asked you guys to really. Eric said himself that he hadn't looked into it very much. All I ask is to properly examine it.
We are, and it's a drug research study, which is fine and interesting, but we can't ignore the fact that they're using drugs to get these states.
They've had atheist volunteers, and they showed
atheists also trip out. It's a thing.
Yeah, you just talked to one who gave you an example.
A majority of the atheists in the studies no longer identify with atheism after this event. So I believe it has more implications than you may realize, and you may want to look into it a little bit more.
I really, really am trying to find a thread through here where we can have some objective reality.
Yeah, you said you wanted to define spirituality. Is defining spirituality going to be based on this study? Are you saying that this study defines spirituality by these 6 characteristics?
I would say look into the 6 characteristics. I didn't really get into them without it being mocked, like initially. But I would say that, these neuroscientists, they're very serious about what they're doing. And, I mean, these descriptions may have sound funny to you, but I would say it's probably because you haven't had an experience like this. And, these criteria, they have been well defined over decades of research. And, you could read them for yourself.
Wow.
I don't need to experience it. So that's like saying I don't understand racism unless I experience racism. I can absolutely understand it. I don't have to have somebody.
Analogy, but all right.
So
also, how serious someone is while they're doing research has no indication on how useful that research is.
I'm looking for any kind of published numbers where they say where they talk about their methodology and what they counted as a hit and what counted as a miss and how large their sample size is. I'm not seeing anything in here.
Double-blind studies that have been going
on
about 2000 and at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland, University of Medicine.
Right, he's on the site. He's looking at the study on the site, and he's not finding anything.
They're explained. I mean, if you're just glossing over it, of course you're not going to quickly find it. But these are double-blind trials that have been going on for a while now.
So
It prompted research.
So wait, how would someone engage in a double-blind trial for drug use? There's half the people not taking drugs and half are?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's so everyone has to be unaware of what's being administered, from the nurses to the doctors to the volunteer, and it's not revealed till the study's done.
Okay.
I mean, that's how the double-blind method works.
I don't understand why they would need a double-blind study to come up with 6 criteria and sort experiences into.
No, the criteria had been developed prior to the double-blind method is because they're using psilocybin, but the criteria for developed in the earlier decades.
You said to ignore the fact that they were using psilocybin. So you're using.
No, I meant to ignore the fact. Don't focus on psychedelics as though that's the point.
But that's what they're doing in the study, right? They're focusing on the drugs as if they're the point.
I've got them up, and I have gone through every single one of these links, and there's only one of them that has an abstract. There's only one that has actually been a study with people, and the only thing that it says there is that they wanted to see if there was a link between where is it? Hold on just a second. Here we go. Does it boost your immune system? And so let's ask that question. If me having a drug-induced experience boost my immune system, does that point toward the existence of a spiritual world? I mean,
I don't think that was one of his Griffith studies, but
I'm on their website. Do entheogen-induced mystical experiences boost the immune system by Thomas B. Roberts?
It's a different person.
This is the CSP website. I'm on the site right now. I looked through all of the links, and the only writing that comes up has nothing to do with your point.
If you're using Google to search if you're on the CSP website, the Council on Spiritual Practices, run a Google qualifier search for perennial philosophy, and you'll see the peer-reviewed material which talks about this stuff.
Okay, so then CSP.org is swinging a miss.
Yeah, you would have to write in Google site : and then the URL for the CSP website, and then in quotations write perennial philosophy. That's how you use the Google qualifiers.
Yeah, but you're
my concern here though is that we are all over the place. Okay, we're all over the place. The fact that they are doing
back to the point.
Okay, so the fact that they are doing this research is interesting, and I'd be interested to read about this research. But I'm not taking a small team of people who are administering drugs and psychedelics to people to determine their experiences using philosophy and creating a criteria out of what William James
I don't think
is?
that's necessarily what they're doing. I think you're getting confused by the word philosophy and perennial philosophy. It's also known as the perennial wisdom or perennialism. It's a perspective on the major religions, which they see as consistent with what they're finding with investigating these mystical experiences.
Okay, so they're trying to scientifically explain religious phenomena.
Yes, in neuroscientific terms, and yes, that's basically what they're trying to achieve.
And they've said that taking drugs like psilocybin
gives you these mystical experiences. Cool, we agree on that.
The finding was that they're biologically normal. So these experiences that mystics have called theoria or nirvana and so forth is a natural phenomenon in consciousness.
Well, people can trip out. Cool story, bro. What does that matter? Why? People messing with their brain chemistry doesn't give you truth. It just gives you people who commune with their ceiling fans.
Well, I wouldn't equate, mystical experience to messed up brain chemistry. This is a natural phenomenon within us. People who've had this experience, they describe it as the clearest of the clearest, the surest of the surest, ultimate truth.
Okay.
It's more real than real. And
that makes no sense.
Hold on. My brain is not even comprehending more real than real. You do understand that you're talking to two skeptics, and you buckshotted a whole bunch of sophistry. That is
my own mystical experience.
I don't care about your mystical experience, Jimmy. Is your mystical experience going to convince me? And what is it going to convince me of?
Your mystical experience is going to convince you. That's my point. You don't simply just look into this research. If you really wanted to challenge yourself, you would volunteer into the research.
Dude,
Jimmy,
I've done the drugs,
Jimmy,
man.
are you trying to sell us drugs?
No. You see, I mean, that's only if you, I mean, you could also engage in meditation and so forth. I've heard you say, Eric, that you've tried it, man. But if you really wanted to do it in a shamanic setting, you would have to do what Terrence McKenna was talking about with the heroic dose, or what Kalindi Ii is talking about with beyond the heroic dose. I doubt you've tried that, my friend.
So I just didn't do it right.
You were never tripping. You were never a Christian, and you were never tripping.
To re-examine
all of your
your experience, man. I am. I'm challenging you to double the dose. Yes.
Wow.
Dude, I might take you up on that for entirely different reasons, but that is regardless of the point, Jimmy. The point is,
right.
the point is we're not getting anywhere near.
Well, maybe
a reliable method to understand the world around us. All it is,
90 milligrams of DMT.
Jimmy,
to get to a point.
Jimmy, this is an acrobatic twisting of head up, rectum. How does this have anything to do? And I'm not saying you are that way. I'm saying this line of reasoning gets us nowhere, Jimmy. Why are we here?
Antonio,
I don't even know why we're here anymore, Jimmy. Why are we here? What is the point of this conversation if not to understand? Help me, Jimmy.
Sure.
Bring me back.
I think Antonio was trying to say it earlier when he said that you no longer identify with your body. You identify with all of nature. You see it as a unity. You have utmost, complete, infinite love for everything.
Okay. Does that mean, what does that say about the actual universe we're in?
Well, when a mystic often comes back from this experience, they no longer regard, they don't see God as some entity, that's some bearded entity out there. They see
we're not saying that there's a bearded entity in the sky. We're just listening to people about what they have to say.
Sure.
So, what is your definition?
This is how I agree with this, because I've had this experience myself. You come back with a pantheistic understanding of the divine as opposed to pantheism. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something a little bit more broad.
So how do you determine whether or not that viewpoint is true?
By this experience, I think.
By giving them drugs.
That's circular. You can't say this experience convinced me of the thing, and the thing is proven by the thing that convinced me. That's not how that works.
It may not work for you. You may not see the sense in it, but I would argue that you haven't had this experience. Like I said, I was an atheist prior to it. The reason why people perceive it as ultimate truth, the vantage point of the mystic.
I understand that you said you were an atheist. I get that. I don't think you were a skeptic. Or you may have put your skepticism on the shelf for a little while. But I don't think we're going anywhere with this conversation, man.
I think if you have that attitude, Eric, that your show is going to be haunted by these type of calls. You're going to have people like me, Antonio, always bringing up DMT, spirituality.
Sure.
Until you have it yourself. Until you finally do DMT for yourself or something, then it's like Matt said. He won't understand this experience until he has it, and until then, it's going to be necessarily gobbledygook. You know.
Well, we can agree on that.
And so long as you're here to call, we'll be here to answer, Jimmy. We'll be here to answer.
All right. Well, like I said, just if you don't mind, just looking into it a little bit, and that's all. And if maybe I'll call again and see if you ever bother doing that.
Okay. Here's my question, Jimmy. If I now go out and do a bunch of drugs, and you call in and I say, Jimmy, I did a bunch of drugs, will you come back and say you didn't do enough drugs? You need to do more drugs. You did it the wrong way.
I definitely wouldn't, man. But I would, encourage you to go into it a little bit more deeply, man. I don't think you've gone into it deeply enough.
I mean, challenge accepted.
We've heard that before, that you just haven't understood it enough, or you didn't go deep enough. It's the same talking points that theists give for everything. You didn't read the NIV, the ESV, the King James Version.
Take the advice. Don't just hear it. Take the advice.
I did, and all it did was waste a whole bunch of my time, because what it did is it just showed that they were finding a way to write me off because they didn't want to listen. So how are you any different?
Well, I have been listening. I do participate in a lot of theist discussion. And
okay, so why are you? So you're writing off my experience because it doesn't fit your narrative.
I haven't heard your experience. And,
I told you.
He gave you a full account.
Communing with my ceiling fan. Remember that part? I did. You said I didn't.
Sure, but I mean, Graham Hancock would joke about Terrence saying communing with your washing machine. But I don't know. That's not enough. It's not a descriptive experience. At least Matt Dillahunty in our call,
I described the experience.
What he
not
felt
enough,
the Holy
Eric.
Spirit.
Not enough.
This is your fault.
I obviously.
Well, yeah. I mean, you would have to. I mean, people if you even look into research, the people who a lot of their expressions are private, but the ones that have given permission for Roland Griffiths to use publicly, they're very elaborate. They go very.
Wait, so the majority of these personal experiences aren't even available to look at?
Yeah, the descriptions that the volunteers give, yes, they're not. They're private.
Yeah, that's not science, bro.
Yeah, I feel like this is yeah.
Yeah. So what I'd love for you to do is look up Miracle Mineral Solution. Miracle Mineral Solution is purported to be a cure-all. It's telling people to microdose bleach or chlorine. I think it's industrial bleach.
Yeah.
And they have been cherry picking for decades and have had to move their operations out of the country because it became, it was killing people. And the methodology that you're describing, no, it's not. The methodology you're describing is exactly the same. The methodology that you're describing is exactly the same. The methodology that you're describing is exactly the same. Please look up Miracle Mineral Solution.
I mean, it sounds, like some sort of thing, but I wouldn't compare it to microdosing psilocybin. They're two complete. I mean, I wouldn't compare beach.
But that's not what he's doing.
No, I'm talking about methodology. There's a reason why that doesn't work. I'm not arguing with you about the psilocybin itself. I'm arguing with you that you're using a bad method.
Well, even if you're assuming a flawed methodology, I would still say that's a false analogy. I mean, you're still trying to dismiss this out of hand when this is established research. Like, I don't understand that.
Because it's established by a flawed methodology.
I disagree.
Well, then we're going to have to disagree on that one. Please look up Miracle Mineral Solution. I feel like you're opening a space up in your life to be taken advantage of because...
You said you hadn't looked into the research, so...
I listened to you, dude. I listened to you, and I'm giving you an analogous example to explore.
I didn't really elaborate. I wasn't given a chance to, man. The second I pointed out one of the characteristics, it was automatically mocked.
Well, it should be mocked, Jimmy. It should be mocked. It doesn't have room.
The science should be embraced. The science should be embraced, not mocked.
No, connecting to the grand scheme of things and having a oneness with the universe is sophistry, Jimmy.
More real than real is not a quantifiable physical thing that we can measure, so it's not science.
You can dress it up as much as you want, but as long as you're using that language, no, dude.
It's quantifiable in the sense that it's invariably expressed by the volunteers that meet criteria for the continuous solution.
It's quantifiable because I can count people who said that they had this experience. I can count people that do drugs. Fantastic.
Well, it's a bit more complicated than that, man.
Well, I look forward to you calling in again with some other examples because this one didn't work for me. And Johns Hopkins Council on Spiritual Practices. I only found one thing, and it had nothing to do with your point. Well, everything else was a subjective article.
All I would say, it would be a disservice to discount what they're saying, man. And I would ask you to please re-examine it if you get an opportunity.
I'm not discounting the results. I'm discounting the why. somebody tripping out, I'm not going to say, no, you didn't trip out. I'll say you tripped out, but if you're saying I tripped out and got this understanding of the universe and it's true, that's where I'm going to come in and say, no, you don't get to do that unless you have a good reason. And you haven't given a good reason other than a whole lot of people have done it. If a whole lot of people jump off a bridge, that doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And it doesn't mean that you should advocate for other people to do it. You need to have good reasons. And just because a lot of people did it, and I counted a lot of them, and we've been counting them for a long time, is the exact same reasoning that Miracle Mineral Solution is still trying to give people bleach. And by the way, bleach enemas as well. It's killed children.
Well,
so,
that's fine, but,
no.
the research
That's not fine.
No, it's not. But anyway, Jimmy?
No, I said your assessment is fine. That's, if you want to consider it, if you want to construe it that way, that's fine. But, that's definitely not how it's characterized in this research. I think we'd be giving people the wrong impression.
I think we've been on this call for a while, but...
Sure, man. It was nice. I appreciate it, man.
You know what? It is kind of fun. It is kind of fun. It gives us time and opportunities to show people where, hey, you know what? Just because an authority figure or it looks like an authority figure said something, when it breaks down, you need to understand how it's happening and why it's happening. And counting people who said a thing doesn't make, you can say, yes, they experienced this thing. That doesn't mean that they have access to reality. And it definitely doesn't mean that you can say more real than real. That's just not how any of this works.
I could say, hey, Jimmy, I ate a Tide Pod and had a mystical experience. You should go eat Tide Pods until you experience the same thing I did.
Tide Pods.
Right?
It happens only when people take high doses of psilocybin or something like that, or engage in meditation. In other words, the science can only demonstrate what it can demonstrate, and this is what it's demonstrated.
Yeah, people trip out, dude.
I'm just sharing it with you, and you're mocking it. That's what I don't get.
Because we agreed with you that people tripped. We're disagreeing with you.
What I was saying, though. That's not what I was saying.
We're disagreeing with you that a oneness with the universe is something that you can quantify, is something that you can scientifically sit down and go.
Necessarily. Okay, but we're not talking about some kind of physical, quantifiable method to discern this.
Okay, so then we're not talking about science.
Yeah.
What we're saying is that this is what people invariably describe inside the so-called completeness.
Right. Christians invariably describe having experiences with Jesus Christ, their Lord and Savior. Do we take that as indicative of scientific reality too?
Well, see, this is precisely why I asked to look into it. That's not a complete mystical experience. That's in this research would be characterized
that's a no true Scotsman argument.
But, if you're having a vision of something that you're relating to, you're still operating in the subject-object dichotomy. That's not a mystical experience. The mystical experience happens when that barrier breaks, when there's non-duality, when there is no longer the subject-object dichotomy.
No, I'm not trying to pass off seeing Jesus as having a mystical experience. I'm saying the methodology of saying many people describe a thing, therefore there must be some kind of supernatural explanation for that thing is not okay. And it's not okay if
That's also a straw man. I wasn't saying anything about the supernatural. I think a lot of atheists try to swindle it that way because they redefine that term to that which is not natural.
Okay, so you're not
completely natural phenomenon.
So you're not saying that this study has anything to do with a supernatural realm or anything outside of nature?
Not in the way that atheists define it, definitely.
Okay.
Well, this was a waste of time. Jimmy?
You may think so, man, but maybe you'll come back to it eventually.
Maybe I'll become a Christian as well. Jimmy, have a happy New Year, man.
Yeah, you too, brother. Thank you.
That was fun.
No.
I had fun.
I feel a little disheartened at the end there. It kind of sucked that out just a little bit. Because, if you're saying people had this experience, but it has nothing to do with reality, then why did you call other than to say, this is a cool thing, which I'll agree is a cool thing.
Right. Like, I'll read that. If I can find the study, I'll read it. But again, it's a cool thing that people experience similar things when they trip on similar drugs because our chemistry and biology is similar.
Mm-hmm.
And ...
Yeah, you can't really draw any more from that.
Right, exactly. And he got upset that we were assuming that he was trying to draw something more.
Yeah. There was somebody who called in, didn't want to hop on the air, but said that the article, they found it and it was being misrepresented. Hopefully I can get that link before we end the show. It is 2:46. We've got 2 callers on the line, and we're running long. Call the fuck in. We're going to do this until we don't want to anymore. The Talk Heathen is staying open so long as our crew wants to keep going. That is fucking cool.
That's cool. It's a filibuster,
stoked.
guys.
It is a
Mr. Smith goes to fucking Washington.
It is Talk Heathen extravaganza. I'm stoked. So let's move on to the next caller, Brian in Florida.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Hey, doing good. How are you doing?
A little mushy bond.
I was there. I was listening. I felt all of your pain. Trust me.
Yeah. Looking at the live chat, they were feeling it too.
Oh God, it was just painful. First, when I remember they were talking about the 4. What was it? The 4 somethings. When they mentioned politics as part of their worldview, I was like, oh no.
Well, I mean, good for that person for recognizing that politics is an ingrained part of your worldview and affects how you see the world, but also not relevant at all to what we're doing here.
Exactly. But all it took was pointing that out for them to understand and go, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you want to talk about?
Well, I'm a non-believer. I've seen you guys' show a lot. I'm a long-time watcher, first-time caller. I've been around ever since I was like a really little kid when I was still questioning my beliefs, when Matt Dillahunty slapped the sense into my brain, I grew up with a lot of Santeria. I don't hear you guys talking about that. Have you guys had any examples from people that are into that religion in particular?
So not Santeria in particular. No, I know people whose families practiced, but I don't live anywhere near that anymore. And I wasn't super into it. Now I've talked to people as an atheist who have, kind of experimented and looked into, brujeria, and all of that. And what?
No, that's the right word to say it. I just didn't expect to hear it from the show.
Yeah.
I was expecting just like, oh yeah, witchcraft,
No, like legit. Talk to these people. Yeah. But there's so little experience that talking about it, I feel like I wouldn't have enough to really give, and really kind of the way we structure the show is we keep it to the person who's calling. That way we don't go off and strawman any other arguments. But anyway.
Yeah.
You wanted
a way of doing it.
Yeah. Thank you. We also actually had somebody who was into voodoo call in. And that's close enough. Their time is coming up soon, by the way. My teeth still need to fall out of my head.
Yep. They've got January 13th.
Is it January 13th?
It is January 13th.
We need to put like an Eric tooth watch.
Yes.
Or I need to die. I think we can replace the show with an ad for that person and what they do if that will come true. If
Where's
not,
the tooth falling out countdown, huh?
Yeah, we got to do something about that. I'm sure it'll be up by the end of the show. But what did you experience in Santeria?
Well, I personally was never, quote unquote, a part of that religion per se, but I definitely grew with my family members. I have plenty of stories even outside of my family because I just live in the area. Here in Florida, it's just there's just a bunch of people who migrated from Cuba years ago, and that religion really blew up in the capitalist way because you can just obtain whatever you need to do for whatever weird ceremony you need to they have many of these shops, all right, all around town where it's just like a dark shop. They sell chickens, like live chickens, like jars, like things for you to do. It's quite candles. Oh my God, everything spiritualistic, big quotations.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of it. My mother in particular, my dad's not into it. He's more of just God, like believing in a God, quote unquote, Catholicism, whatever. My mother never forced me or my brother into any religious bias at all. She said, you do what you wish, like what you think is right. And the only people that I could say honestly were biased was my grandparents, like my grandmother with Catholicism and that sort of belief. But even though she never influenced us, I saw the implications of what she was doing, and I didn't like it. It just seemed pointless. Like, for example, here's one: killing like baby chickens, putting them in a paper bag, and then throwing them through a window to curse someone. Right? That's something that happens a lot, using sacrifices and that. When I was a little younger. What was it? The time of year, the time of year where everybody likes to hang out, and it's April, 20th, and everybody likes to have a good time, and they go to the park. Yeah. We have a little spot where we go to hang out in the park, and it was just a massacre, just dead chickens, the spiritual.
Oh my God,
candles. It was in the middle of the night. We were freaking out. It was the worst.
That would be a very awkward thing to stumble on while high, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, man. But you know what? It's kind of funny, and the interesting thing is the existence of it, the prevalence of it helps reinforce to some people that it's true. So I recently went to a sex shop, and I was in there and checking everything out, super cool. And I'm ringing up, and I look to the right of me, and there's penis enlarging cream and vagina tightening cream.
Ooh.
And I'm thinking to myself, that's not a thing. But why is it here? Because people want to buy it. So they're selling it because people want to buy it. Okay. But the thing is what they're doing inadvertently is bolstering the claim that is a true thing by selling it. I mean, all they had to do is go, you know what? No, we're not going to sell that. But no, people want to buy it, so they're going to sell it. And it props up bullshit. But
they're giving it validity just by selling it.
You got it, man. You got it.
Yeah.
But good times. Anyway, Brian, it was good to talk to you about it. I definitely
absolutely
have some interesting memories for sure.
I might even call back in maybe next week or something if you guys ever want to know anything really deep, because I have a lot of just in my head, because a lot of things that you probably would never know about this religion, I know. I'm in very deep.
Brujeria?
If you will. Yeah, I know a lot of things.
Write me an email. I don't know if that would be right for this show, but I want to find a way to plug that in because I'd love to talk to you about it.
Sure.
Mail@talkheathen.com.
Mail@talkheathen.com?
You got it.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. I'll send you an email through my Gmail.
Sounds good. All right, take care, brother.
You too. Have a good rest of your filibuster.
Will do. Funny story
about that filibuster there.
Yeah. So actually, I want to take this time to thank our patrons. I'm refreshing right now our top 5 patrons as we end the year, not the show, but the year, are Charlotte Crum, Desert Heathen, Bethany of the Inner Circle. Love it.
Nice.
Cully and Kamal. Thank you. It's that patronage that allows us not only to do this show, but to put on other shows and help other organizations that are absolutely worth it. Thank you. If you'd like to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/talkheathen to me. That's patreon.com/talkheathen patreon.com/talkheathen to me.
Yeah, if your New Year's resolution include giving more to different nonprofits and charities, like to bump us up to the top of that list. Very modestly, of course.
So we actually did get the nod that it turns out our filibuster is getting filibustered by the Atheist Vanguard. So at 3 p.m., the Atheist Vanguard is going to come out with a new episode. But we're not done yet. We can start by... Eric? Anyone?
No.
Love rings? No? Maybe?
We're ending the year with no love rings. That's so
okay.
sad. The audience is giving us love rings.
Oh,
There we go.
It's been an amazing year. V, I'm so glad that you joined us this year, and I'm really looking forward to season 4.
Me too. This has been not where I expected my year to end, but couldn't have asked for better.
Definitely. We want to thank all the people on the other side of this wall who make it happen. Our crew. Crew Cam. There they are. Hey, everybody.
It's a crocoduck.
Yay! Thank you, crew. Oh, there's an Illuminati symbol over. Oh my gosh, what is this?
Shit, what?
The turtles and the I don't know what's going on.
More love rings. This is
Okay.
okay.
Okay. We want to thank the studio audience. Thank you all for coming out. V, thank you.
Thank you.
So for those of you who don't believe, gosh, it's been a journey, hasn't it? Wherever you are along the way, I think that caller early on who wanted to know about our journey, he says he's Christian. Doesn't it just like strike a serious chord there?
It really, really does. Josh, you're welcome here.
Yeah, and that's one of the important things about this show is one of the reasons why we do it. Looking at the live chat and seeing a whole bunch of love. This is your community. We're going into 2020 and let's make it the best year possible. And for those of you who do believe, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong. See you next year.
What are we doing, man? What are we doing?
No, you're done.